Hello, wanderlust of the world. Welcome back to my channel. It has been so long time since I do a video. Welcome to Over a Cup of Coffee section. Right now I don't have the coffee with me, but it's going in the section Over a Cup of Coffee. Today I will be talking about the European restrictions to get in any European country. I will try to go country by country. It's a long list, so I pretty much will go and overall about the European traveling banning by this season of COVID-19 pandemic stay reestablishing. So tag along. Hello, wanderlusters. Okay, so European traveling during COVID-19. We're still during COVID-19, and it's very important that we keep ourselves very well informed of what is going on around the world. In this case, we're going through the European traveling restrictions. So far, so long, most of the countries in the European Union are still in lockdowns with the borders closed. Especially they're having the borders closed for foreigners travelers outside the European Union countries, the exchange area, or from the European Union safe list. In the European Union safe list, we have Australia, New Zealand, Rwanda, Singapore, South Korea, Thailand, and China. Oh, no, sorry. Those are, they're not in the safe list, but those countries are allowing their travelers entry and exit from the European in exchange that they are reciprocates. Like if somebody is traveling from Australia to a European country, they allow this traveling entry. But in exchange, if a passenger from this European country is going to Australia, then Australia have to allow this passenger entry. You see this reciprocity. My English is not the best. Reciprocity. I think that is the closest that I get. But the people that are in the country European safely is Australia, Finland, Greece, Iceland, New Zealand, Norway, Singapore, South Korea, and the Vatican City. Very important too is that some countries have their own list, and the countries that I see that resound the most is Japan, Thailand, and Singapore. In the Asian region, those are the countries that resound more, and South Korea as well keep resounding the most from these places. Most of these countries are trying to go and put in effect a e-passport, health e-passport, a digital vaccination passport, or a vaccination certificate or vaccination passport ID. The purpose of having this going on is that all the people that have been vaccinated in those countries are going to have this document that are going to allow them entry into all the borders without having to go through the process. What is the process or the bureaucracy process that are going into European nations? Pretty much UK travelers are banned given the BY17 variant of COVID. Most places are having South Africa and South America travelers banned as well. But the process when you're going through is like, for some countries, for the majority of the countries, you have to take a PCR test 72 hours prior boarding. Some other countries have the PCR test have to be taken 72 hours prior arrival, and some other countries are having it 48 hours prior boarding. So if you have the e-passport or the passport indeed or the certificate in your hand, you don't have to take this test. You don't have to keep in mind, oh, I'm leaving this day at this time, so I have to take my test this day at this time and cross the fingers that this result arrive on time to you, because you have to have in your hand. You have to show them. It's not like, oh, I test negative. No, you have to show it. So it's imperative that you keep in mind this. Like all of those countries say, the vaccine is not going to be mandatory. You as a self individual, like your individuality, you take the choice, the option to get vaccinated or not get vaccinated. What they are saying is, if you are a traveler, you like to travel, or you have to travel for work or family emergency, instead of wasting money and time taking this test, and we wasting money and time having people to check the test and go through the whole process with you, you take the vaccines, then you get the certificate and you can go through the borders. As long as you don't show symptoms, you can go through the borders without much a problem. In some cases, if you're vaccinated and you have this passport, you will skip the PCR test and the quarantine. In some other cases, you just keep the PCR test, and in some other cases, you just keep the quarantine. It's depending on the country. But what they're saying with the e-passport is going to be easier for us. For what I read, most of these countries are starting to issue those passports now, with the hope that by summer, all those passports have been there. Why by summer? Summer is the high traveling season, the high vacation, the high tourist season, and for what I'm seeing is they are trying to get ease on in the high peak season of traveling to be able to capture back this money. Remember, Europe is one of the areas that receive a lot of tourists, and right now they have been cut. All these countries have been cut out from that income that they normally have and expect for their country. And remember, they are giving stimulus and help to their citizens, and they have to be costed somewhere, and they have to recover somehow back this money. And what better way to recover it than by the tourist sector? Most of these places are still under curfew. The longest curfew is in France. They have a 12-hour curfew, and the curfew is from 18-hour to hour 6. That is from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. The shortest curfew I read, if I'm correct, is in UK. Let me see. No. The shortest. The shortest curfew is from 1 hour 1 to hour 5. Is that short? And I know I saw it not long ago. It is the shortest. It's from hour 1 to hour 5. Like I say, it's from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And that curfew is really not really. Anyway, Um, but yeah, that is the shortest one. I don't remember right now the country. I will put it up here when I upload the video. Um, but that is this country with the shortest curfew from 1 hour to hour 5. That's from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Some countries, these countries, are having a limit of visitor per household per day. Um, those countries are having 2 visitors per household, and these countries having 1 visitor per household per day. Very interesting with UK, and I'm going to mention this. UK, in terms, they don't fall anymore. They're not longer European country, and when I say this is they are not longer in the European Union country list. So because of the Brexit, they exit the European Union, so they're being treated like a third-party country to all the rest of the European Union countries. So for them it's even harder to get into Europe or to get out from the UK, especially now with the B117 variant. And UK is one that I want to read because they have something else going on there. UK is very peculiar because they have the B117 variant going on. And they ban all the tourists to and from UK. Since February 15, all arrivals from high-risk area must quarantine in the government-appointed hotels for 10 days. A PLF, that's allocated form, have to be completed. Wales and Scotland are binded by those rules as well. And a proof of negative result taken from 72 hours prior arrival must be provided. They are in lockdown right now, and Britons can leave their house only for justified reasons. It have to be work, shopping, or medical appointment. Unable to accomplish to those rules, you have to pay a fine of £10,000. So imagine you want to go out, but it doesn't fall to the work, or shopping, or medical appointment reasons. What are you going to do? You have to stay, or you have to pay the fine of £10,000. It's not easy. There are some countries that have capped the public gatherings. Some have like 5 people can be gathered together, no more than 5. Some other have like capped it to 3, but the maximum that I have seen is 5 people gathering together. There are some countries that they have casino. There's a country that have the casino banned to sell alcohol after the 22 hours. And there's some others that have public gathering banned at 22 hours. Oh, that's 10 p.m. There are some countries, and it's very interesting. I think it's Cyprus and Malta. Those are 2 countries that I'm going to go into it. Okay, Malta is one of those that have 3 lists going on, but actually have 2 lists. Have the green and the amber list. If your country doesn't fall in any of those lists, you are in the red list. And those arrivals must spend at least 14 days prior in a safe corridor country before arriving to Malta. A negative test result taking no longer than 72 hours have to be shown upon arrival, and they are suspended the flight from to and from UK. So these are not. Malta is very interesting because they are not closing the borders. They are like managing who is coming in and who's coming out. But you don't have to be from the European Union or the Schengen area to get into, or the European Union's safely countries to get into Malta. The other one that I think is Cyprus. Yeah, the other one is Cyprus. Cyprus, very interesting. It's a very interesting case, if I am correct. Let me see. I don't want to give. Okay, there are two countries very interesting in the sea. Okay. Croatia was the only country in the last summer that was allowing the United States citizens entry when everybody else in the world have closed the borders for United States citizens. This country, Croatia, have opened it. But in January 13, they closed all its borders with the exception of traveling coming from the European Union and the exchange area. Regardless of citizenship, and this is very important to mention, because if I am, say, I am a student in the European Union country or in the exchange area, and I want to go to Cyprus, I can go as soon as I adhere to their process and the restrictions. If you come from a green country, you are allowed entry without much any restrictions, right? Cyprus is another very interesting country because they are one of those countries that have a list of people that are allowing entry, and where they fall in those lists depending on what list you fall is the restriction they're going to apply to you. If you fall in the restriction on the list A, you're the most sound epidemiology category. You're coming for the most sound epidemiological countries, so there's no restriction in place for you if you're coming from these countries, or Australia, Cyprus, New Zealand, Singapore, and Thailand. But if you fall in list B, they can request you a PCR test, a negative PCR test. If you don't have that, you can request it upon arrival. It's going to cost you like 60 euros, it's like $73 USD, and you have to enter a quarantine until a negative result is acquired. So if you don't have your PCR test negative result, you have to get a test. You can request it there, and you have to get into quarantine until you receive the test, and it has to be a negative one. And those countries are China, Finland, Germany, Greece, Vatican City, Hong Kong, Iceland, Japan, Korea, Norway, South Korea to be precisely, Norway, Rwanda, and San Marino. If you're not in the A, in the B, you are in list C, and only Cyprus residents or those cleared under Vienna Convention can enter Cyprus. And it's very drastic when they are allowing entry in December to what they're doing now. And they're one of those countries that are under night curfew. And very interesting with Cyprus is that the people can leave their home just only twice a day. And when they are leaving the home, they have to send an SMS to the 8998 testing like, I'm leaving home. You can only leave your home twice a day. So you send one the first time you leave home, and then you have to think it really, really hard when you're going to leave home for a second time in the day, because as soon as you send the text message, you say, okay, this is your second. Let me see. The Czech Republic has something very interesting. If you're coming from a red or a high risk country or zone, you have to wear a face covering of medical degree for 10 days every time you go away from home or from the place you're staying. And it has to be an FFP2, KN95, N95, P2, DS, or at least a disposable medical degree face mask. It cannot be a cloth one or those stuff that you have seen around the world online. There's a country that have taken this to a whole new level, because if you're coming from a high risk area, you have to file a PLF form, a locator form, 48 hours upon arrival. Um, 48 hours upon arrival, and they're going, depending on your answer, they're going to send you a text message. If you don't receive the text message, you are good. You can go and reestablish yourself in the society of that country. But if you receive the test, okay, use Belgium. So Belgium have these, all non-essential travels are banned, but they have this test message, and if the test message is received, the person needs to get tested on day 1 upon arrival, and they need to get tested on day 7 of their arrival, plus they go into quarantine for 10 days. And it's very interesting because if you fail to prove negative test, then the quarantine can stay longer until you prove a negative test. And they have people returning from UK, South Africa, and South America. They need to follow all this tests, but the quarantine can be longer than 10 days. It can be 14 days or even longer. So it's very interesting, those countries that I mentioned specific, because they are taking this stuff to a whole new level to keep their people safe. Sorry for that. To keep the people safe and to keep all this economic coming back as soon as possible. All these restrictions that have put in place is with the hope that we can go back into normalcy as soon as possible. Germany is the other country that is very interesting because the travels have to be approved by the government before it can take place. So Germany, let me see. Germany, yeah, they're in the process to go back on lockdown. They are not allowing overnight stay at hotels. You can stay like a few hours during the day, but you cannot stay like more than one. You cannot stay a whole day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. That's not allowed. Only essential shops are open in Germany. They're only allowing European Union members or exchange states and countries from the European Union approved list entry. And you have to be on urgent reasons for this possible entry. Greece is interesting because they're having a tougher lockdown in the Athens area because of the spike of the COVID-19 cases. But it's very interesting because they're limiting the entry of the Russian citizens. They're only allowing 500 Russians to enter per week, if I'm correct. Yeah, they're only allowing 500 Russians enter per week, and they have to enter only through airports of Athens, Thessaloniki, Heraklion, and Crete. And they're subject to the same control, random swab, quarantine, and PCR test results. So pretty much to be able to travel to the European Union, any European country, you have to be part of the European Union countries, be in the European safe list countries, or be in the exchange area, or in the case of Cyprus, that you can be approved or cleared out by the Vienna Treaty. With that said, like I say, they are looking for those passports to make all this process like be limited, be the shortest as possible, and be able to bring back these economies that is coming from the tourist sector. With all that say, sorry, I'm sick because of the seasonal allergies. The weather change is killing me. Where I work, I'm exposed to exchanges of temperature, like cold, and hot. So it's bound to happen, and because we're going into the spring process, it's not helping at all. So sorry for that I'm not in my best shape. I'm trying to get better, trying to get healthier as fast as possible, and I promise